Welcome to National Pension Partners, where retirement planning meets peace of mind. Today, we're diving into the 412(e)(3 plan, also known as a fully insured pension plan. This isn't just any retirement plan. It's the gold standard for stability and guaranteed benefits. How does it work? Simple. It's funded exclusively by life insurance and annuity contracts. This means no market risks, no actuarial assumptions, just ironclad guarantees. Think of it like this. You're a small business owner who hates surprises. The 412(e)(3 plan gives you predictable, stable contributions every year. Your future benefits are backed by insurance contracts, so you know exactly what you're getting. No guesswork, no headaches. But there's more. These plans are designed to maximize your contributions and offer significant tax advantages. And with National Pension Partners, you're not just getting a plan, you're getting a team of experts, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, all dedicated to making your retirement as secure as possible. We provide personalized consulting, ensuring that your plan is tailored to your specific needs. Best part? Initial consultations and proposals are absolutely free. $0, zero commitment. So if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. With the 412(e)(3 plan, your future is in safe hands. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. Perfect for small business owners who like their finances as predictable as Monday mornings. Stable contributions, ironclad guarantees, and serious tax advantages. It's the trifecta of financial security. And with National Pension Partners, you get a team of brainiacs, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, ensuring your retirement is as secure as Fort Knox. Oh, did we mention the free consultations? That's right. You get a personalized expert proposal with $0 down. So, if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. Because when it comes to your future, boring is the new exciting. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. For more details, check out National Pension Partners at nationalpensions.com. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling.
All right, folks, there's lots going on in the world. As a matter of fact, I've already been on another podcast today and everything, because sometimes you get invited to be on podcasts. And there was a gentleman, Dr. Lauren, that was having a podcast out of Chicago talking about history, because he talks about a lot of things on his show, Bathrobe Moments, and all along those lines. But we were talking about the Hayti Heritage Center, which, as many of you know, is a place that I work at, and all along those lines. And as I know that sometimes Jim E. jokes about being in his bathrobe, and sometimes actually Rick is in his bathrobe. So I felt at home when I was on his show and all along those lines. But it was good having that conversation, and we were talking about the importance of history and all along those lines. But we also got to deal with what's going on in the modern day world. So let me come on and tell you what's happening here, and then we'll have other people come in and say their thoughts about what's going on in their world and all along those lines and everything. By the way, I think the name of his network is E360 or something along those lines, but he's definitely one of the people attached to that. So it was good to have some companionship with folks that are doing other things similar to what we're doing here at Pod TV and everything like that. But Israel has launched an invasion into southern Lebanon, and the Israeli troops are not going to Beirut. Ground op will be as short as we can, is what they are saying, and all along those lines, as they have launched ground invasion in Lebanon with limited raids on Hezbollah. And Japan's new Prime Minister Ishibe pledges reform and deeper ties with friendly nations. So Japanese Parliament has confirmed Ishibe as the new Prime Minister. So Shigeru Ishibe, Japan's newly elected Prime Minister, forms the cabinet, and all along those lines. So we'll see how they do in the government of their area. And Julian Assange says he pleaded guilty to journalism to secure his freedom in the first public remark since leaving prison. So Julian Assange said he chose freedom over unreasonable justice. So he said that he definitely did that, and definitely that's what he said in his latest press release. And Hassan Nasrallah is suffocated to death inside his secret bunker, is what folks are saying, and Israel has killed multiple Hezbollah leaders, and definitely there are some key players that remain, and we'll see what goes on in that space as well. And approximately 10 projectiles have been identified by IDF after targeting the Meron area in Israel. So Hezbollah targets Israel's Mossad headquarters with rocket fire, and 2 wounded by shrapnel after rocket sirens sound in Tel Aviv across central Israel. And they're saying Hezbollah may have enough missiles to breach Israel's Iron Dome, but doing so could trigger its own destruction. And that was something that was reported almost several days ago, and all along those lines. So we'll see if they still got that kind of firepower. I know that definitely Jonathan is one of the people that speaks regularly on the Ukraine, Russia, China show, talks regularly about the Iron Dome and how that Iron Dome is very forceful and it can withstand a lot. So we'll see if that is the case or not the case. Thailand school bus fire kills at least 10, mostly children and teens. So that is something that is very sad, as Thai emergency services at the scene of a deadly school bus fire outside of Bangkok. And the White House believes Iran is preparing an imminent ballistic attack against Israel. So that's something that they are saying, and all along those lines. And Xi Jinping is forecasting rough seas on the 75th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. So Xi warns of obstacles ahead in the first speech after his stimulus plan, and he vows reunification with Taiwan on the eve of Communist China's 75th birthday. So the Chinese president says the nation will move forward despite difficulties and obstacles. And the Freedom Party becomes Austria's first far-right party to win election since World War II. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And hunger in Haiti is reaching famine level as gangs squeeze life out of the capital and beyond. So half of the Haitians facing hunger as violence persists. So definitely Haiti's 185,000 displaced struggle for survival while facing gang violence. So that's something going on in the Caribbean area and all along those lines. And a Nigerian zookeeper was mauled to death by a lion after leaving the safety gate open doing, it looks like, a feeding and all along those lines. So they were feeding and he got mauled to death and everything. So Babajide Dolly was mauled to death by that lion there in Nigeria. And they're saying that a fear of a Soviet-style collapse is keeping Xi Jinping up at night and all along those lines. So that's something else that we're seeing. And just around the corner from us, after 6 years of a marathon news conference, Mexico's AMLO steps off the stage. So live music, breakfast, and a raffle. Mexico's president makes the most of his final day in office. So definitely triumph and a broken promise is what the Guardian said. So Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador vowed to transform Mexico. But some people are wondering, did he actually transform it? So that's something we're seeing. And don't forget that tomorrow, that being October 2nd, will be a solar eclipse. So definitely they're saying that sometimes those things can impact your zodiac sign if you are a believer in the zodiac. So there will be an annual solar eclipse on October 2nd. And don't forget that later on today will be that lovely debate going on and all in that space. I know we did yesterday on the radio show. I had the pleasure of talking to David Tershachuk, who is a former BBC reporter and still has a thing called Media Beat, and he was giving his speculation as to what he thinks is going on with the race as well. So we'll see whether that takes place, and folks can go back and watch that particular interview as well. So definitely so to see what's going on. And desperation and exhaustion in the mountains here in North Carolina after Helene's deluge and everything. So definitely that's something going on, as they're saying that the Helene's floods caught this particular state off guard. And folks are trying to figure out what they're going to be watching for in the debates. And apparently the main thing that both of them are trying to do is to do no harm in the vice president debate. And Biden celebrates Jimmy Carter's 100th birthday. That's right, Jimmy Carter turned 100 years old and everything. And he's setting a new record for American presidents and all along those lines. So the longest living former U.S. president just turned 100. So yes, definitely that's something going on. And he's in hospice, and definitely it looks like celebrity home builders Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood paid their respects. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And he's lying. Biden blasts Trump political ploy over the storm. And I had heard some people that talked about that, where apparently he was doing some interesting ways of getting attention with the storm, but we'll see if folks agree or disagree. And Pennsylvania survey finds Harris leading Trump narrowly, identifies her biggest weakness according to pollsters and everything like that. So definitely it looks like she's losing advantage in a critical battleground state. And the AARP poll shows a tight race in Pennsylvania with the warning signs for Harris among the older citizens. So that is something else that we're going as well. And a top Adams advisor, Tim Pearson, resigns amid federal corruption probes. So that's going on in New York. And Eric Adams is accusing the DOJ of leaking sensitive case information. So definitely we'll see what goes on in that way as well. And in Conyers, the Conyers chemical plant fire, Rockdale County ends shelter-in-place order. So that's something going on as well, and that we're seeing in that part of the world as well, right here. So that's in the Georgia area. So definitely we'll see what goes on in that sense. And JD's advanced time on the trail has often been overshadowed, according to what MSNB is saying, by well, that was actually NPR, by self-made controversy, whereas MSNBC said that his debate performance will be about convincing voters he's up for the job and everything along those lines. So we'll see how this all plays out and what's going on. And we might have another storm because it looks like Kirk is continuing past toward major hurricane, and NHC is monitoring Invest 91L and some other storms as well. So it looks like Tropical Storm Kirk is out there, and there are some other tropical storms. So Helene might not be the only one doing damage. And Georgia's 6-week abortion ban is struck down. So Georgia court struck down an abortion ban and all along those lines. And as I get ready to bring in my folks and everything along those lines, doctors have issued a stark warning as Louisiana reclassifies the abortion pill. So Louisiana's new abortion pill law may delay life-saving care for women, according to doctors and what they're saying. But Louisiana became the first state to list abortion drugs as controlled substances. So we'll bring in folks and see what they've got to say about a number of those stories that I brought up. And I'll bring in Rick Rosner first. I've also got Nick Palveda with me. I've also got Shaquille from down in Australia, down under, and all along those lines. And of course, I've got Toby with me as well. And I've got two others. Oh, I've got the other founder, Kim Calhoun. And last but not least, we've got Sasha Starr as well. So a lot of things going on in the world. Like I said, I did have the pleasure earlier because I was up earlier than I was expected to be up because Mr. Lauren had booked me to be a guest on his podcast. So sometimes I get to be a guest and not just a producer and a host of my own shows, but he's all into history and stuff like that, and even people jumping off a plane. Don't worry, Shaquille, I wasn't going to jump off of a plane, but I did see him had some guests that were jumping out of planes and doing other stunt things along those lines. But
well, your Americans have interrupted my sleep pattern for the week because the Darren Vance, Tim Waltz debate will be on. I'm obviously going to be on Team Point Australia with Joel Jamal tomorrow, which is tomorrow, it's actually today, our time. But that's 11 o'clock in the morning, our time. And as you guys know, I normally work US hours, which means I'm going to try and get to bed early so I can get up early and go into the studio all the way in the city. So,
yeah. So, Rick, what's your thoughts about the debate? Because, like I said, we didn't
your thoughts to us, Nick? You can't hear you.
So, according to what I've heard, it won't be the lopsided thing that Harris-Trump was, in that Vance is, not an idiot, and apparently can hold his own in a debate. So, I'm hoping, and there's no fact checking this time around. CBS isn't whatever is.
It was ABC.
ABC.
Do you know what time it is?
It's not ABC. Yes. It's not ABC.
Okay. Well, anyway, no fact checking from the moderators. Two, youngish people who, can actually say words. So it'll probably be more even, though frustrating, for each side than the Trump debate.
I think that this debate's going to have added importance, which VP debates generally don't. But I think this one is likely to. I'll base that just on a couple of things. My heart goes out to the people in North Carolina and Georgia that have been affected by the hurricane. Obviously, there's some contention about did Donald Trump just use that as a political stunt, or has Harris and Biden not done enough? All that sort of stuff. What we've seen in the betting markets is that it's now much tighter, much closer than what it was before. But I'll maintain what I've said previously. I think that the Harris campaign really does need to be a little bit more specific and talk about, what they're planning on doing and how they're planning on doing it. And J.D. Vance, look, he doesn't have to do that much. Just don't say anything stupid. Don't tell people that you're eating cats or dogs, right? Like, just behave yourself. Don't say anything too silly. Try and recognise that there are women that end up in difficult positions. When it comes to abortion, all those other debates, try and look like you've got a bit of a heart, and I think that will be all right. But I do suspect that this debate will have more of an influence on the election than most other VP debates would.
Last night, Jon Stewart did a long piece on Harris's proposals. They have some specific numbers, and she has a number of specific plans. You ask Trump about anything, and he doesn't answer the question. So how come you don't want specific plans from Trump, but you need even yet more specific plans from Harris?
I think that the difference is that Trump's sort of trying to ride on his own coattails. He's basically saying, look, I was here before. I did a great job before. Now, I know people will debate whether he did or not, but obviously there's a large percentage of the population that would say that he did. So he's basically riding on that. And look, he says, he has said some things that were really unforced errors. But when he was asked a question in the debate about healthcare, and does he have a plan? He said, I've got a concept of a plan. That's not a good look. But I think that he's been able to, to sort of express, hey, look, we're going to do what we've done before, and it's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be the greatest economy ever, and I'm going to be the best president ever. He's been able to do that and get away with it. I don't think Harris can. And just remember, I think people have to recognise that Harris did have a very, very low approval rating, amongst the lowest of VPs in modern history. And obviously there's been a few things that have happened, to have Biden step aside. So I do think that those are challenges that she does need to address, that she hasn't done adequately so far. And Tim Walz has the opportunity now to be able to, to explain some of that.
Her approval is up 18 points in the past month because people just ranked her badly without knowing her because she was Biden's VP, so she was riding his disapproval coattails.
I'll say one last thing because I know Kimberly wants to say something, but let me just say this, Rick. I think when media is biased, and I think that when there is some bias amongst pollsters, that bias is not just pollsters' fault, but it's also people who want to respond to those polls may be less inclined to do so. I don't think that her approval has actually risen by that degree. I have many reasons why I think that. I won't go into it right at this moment because I know Kimberly wants to say something. But yeah, I don't think that her approval is as high as what the numbers appear. But hey, as I said, there's an election. We'll certainly find out. We'll find out over a month exactly what the American people think. But I'm not buying that her approval's gone up by that amount.
But you have to ask, why was her disapproval so high in the first place based on nobody really knowing her?
Well, she had every opportunity to have people know her and not do that. But then once she became the nominee, she still didn't take advantage of the opportunity to have the people know her. And that's why I have some grave concerns about her approval going up based on the couple of interviews that she did after quite a long time without doing an interview, without doing a news conference.
Hey, Kim, you had something you wanted to add to the conversation? Kim?
Oh, gee, yeah. So I am very concerned about North Carolina. We took a very, very big hit. And one of my most disappointing points in all of this is everyone's using it as a political campaign platform of pointing fingers of, oh, this person did that or this person didn't do that, rather than everyone just joining together like we used to do in the United States and just go fix the problem. I mean, I can remember back in 9/11 with great leadership, nobody sat there and pointed fingers and said, oh, the president's not doing this or did this. Everyone just kind of did what they had to do to save a person or help a person. We're going to have to bail out a lot of water. We're going to have to provide a lot of homes. A lot of businesses were lost up in North Carolina because in this area, it was a lot of privately owned boutique businesses. And we're going to have to unite and work together and stop pointing fingers and waiting for the president or if the president did this or that. Let them do their job. We do what we do best, and that's unite together, bring the provisions that the EMTs need to help everyone. And this is the America I used to know. And this is the America I would like to see back again, that, what we did under Bush and maybe even Obama. Getting back to the actual campaign, one of my questions to Trump is, if your tax cut job act was so great, why hasn't he campaigned on it at all? Why hasn't he ever even mentioned, hey, because of me, the middle class is paying more taxes and have more jobs cut so that we could benefit the top 6%? Why hasn't he bragged about how great it has benefited middle class and lower class Americans, instead of spreading fear about the border and other things that are not as big of a factor or an impact on us economically? And that is, interesting to me that he hasn't mentioned one word about one of the biggest things that exists today that has actually hurt the middle class Americans. And it's proof. I mean, I'm waiting for some of it to load up, but you can watch the TCJA Act review and its impact. And they projected, back when they enacted it, they were promising, the middle class Americans will see an increase of $4,000 in their income. And in the review recently, it was stated by experts that the middle class Americans will be lucky to see a $750 increase if we continue on this path for the next 10 years. So, but we saw a huge increase in our taxes, and that was to recover the $5 trillion losses in tax revenue that was given in tax cuts. And that was a fact that was driven home over and over and over. And it was Republicans that were there too. Where they screwed up when they gave their review, none of them really had facts. They were just saying things like, in theory, it was supposed to do this. It should have done this, but none of them had facts of it actually happening. Yes.
We had a guest yesterday, so we didn't get to discuss it, but Trump said some crazy crap over the weekend. He called Harris,
that's how he gets ahead.
3 times. He called Harris mentally deficient or mentally impaired. And then he talked about how give him 1 day of violence and he could clear up all American crime, which is, people were calling it his purge statement or crystal knocked.
You're taking out of context the things that he said, and you're putting.
I don't think we're taking anything he said out of context. I think he just says whatever he wants to say, and people love it, and he knows it. I mean, you can watch reviews of people commenting on this, and it's just. But he said it, Shaq. He said it. It's not taken out of context. He said it. Period. It's nothing taken out of context.
So let me address a couple of the points you brought up. And you can say it's not taken out of context, but you get very, very upset when the exact words quoted or similar words.
Like J.D. Vance's wife does and explain what Trump really meant.
Let me just address a couple of points that you've made there.
What did he really mean, Shaq?
So I'd like to address a couple of points that you've made. If you want to have a few more minutes to attack Trump, and then I'll address it.
But I think what we need to do is, I just was making a comment about, I don't understand why he's not campaigning on.
Yeah, which is what to address. If you'd like
to address that point, so let's see what Shaq got to say about that.
Yeah.
Hang on, hold up. If you don't want me to address it, if you want to have a few more minutes to talk about how terrible Trump is, then take those few minutes and then let me respond to it.
Go ahead and address it.
No, go ahead and address it so we can move on.
Making sure that everyone's, in the safe space.
All right.
In the first place, you've mentioned about George Bush and 9/11. You said that the country unified. That's not true. Democrats and media, had a lot of questions for George Bush, and one of the things that he was attacked for was that the Secret Service, while he was in the school, had whispered in his ear, and he sat there for 14 or 15 minutes from memory before he actually did anything. So the idea that Republicans weren't attacked by the media back then, that's certainly not true. As for why isn't Trump running on it, Trump is running on it, actually. Trump is consistently saying that his tax cuts are boosting the economy, and that's what he wants to not only continue to do, but actually have bigger tax cuts. He is running on that, and that's been a big part of his philosophy. But I can also ask you the question that if his tax cuts and his tariffs were so bad, why hasn't your side of politics gotten rid of them? They've been in power for 3.5 years. They've continued on with the tariff. They've continued on with these cuts. Might just add to that Trump is also claiming that part of the reason why the economy has done so well is because of those tax cuts that he introduced while he was the president. And I think it's worth noting that when the economy was doing quite well under him, nobody wanted to give him credit for it. They wanted to give Obama credit for it. So if we listen to Democrats, Obama's got credit for the time that the economy went up under Trump. The Democrats have got credit for the time the economy goes up after Trump, and Trump's just terrible. But that's fine. You can have that opinion. I think it's a little personal.
Yeah. Interesting thoughts and everything. I don't know if Kim had an answer or Toby had an answer, but I hear what you're saying and everything. I did have a question that was totally unrelated to the debate and everything, but then we'll come back to the debate questions because it's just me having a lighthearted moment because we need those on the news every once in a while as well. But maybe Jacoby's got an idea. Why do you even bother to go into a lion's cage? Because when I thought this guy was mauled, I'm going like, I do not understand the logic of trying to put yourself in harm's way. It's the same thing I asked when Siegfried and Roy got hurt by their tiger and everything. But why do you actually put yourself in those harm's way and everything? Because it seems to me that was not the most logical thing to put yourself in. But I could be wrong. I've never dealt with a zoo.
It was a zookeeper in the caged almost left open from what you said earlier. I'm not going to vote, so I just share his wisdom.
What did you say, Jacoby?
I guess I'll go into the lion's cage now. Mark, if you could humor me and bring up the thing that I was going to share with everybody.
Yeah, whenever you bring it up, do you have it up?
Yeah, it's. I
see it. Yes.
Yep. And remember, we always ask Kamala Harris for specifics. Can anybody explain what this man says?
What actions will you take to ensure that our jobs stay in America so we can continue to build the best cars in the world here in Michigan?
Now, that's a legitimate question. It's a simple question. And it's the direct question. And it's easily answered by multiple other politicians. Can anybody tell me what this is?
So pretty much as we've been saying, and what I want to do is I want to be able to look your business. Years ago in this area, I was honored as the man of the year. It was maybe 20 years ago. Oh, and the fake news heard about it. They said, it never happened. It never happened. And I didn't know who it was. It was a group that honored me as man of the year. The fakers back there, see the fake news. But they said, oh, and they looked and it, they said it never happened. But I said, I swear to you, it happened. It did happen. I was man of the year. And I came and I made a speech and I said, why do you allow them to take your car business away? Why do you allow it to happen? They're taking your business away. And I didn't know too much about it. All I know is they were taking your car industry away from you. They said it never happened. And lo and behold, somebody said, I remember the event. And then we found out and we had everything. We got the awards. We had everything. It did happen. But I gave us.
So now, what was his answer? We don't know, but we're asking for specifics from one candidate and allowing that to ramble on. So that is an issue that we're having with grading this man on a curve.
Were you saying something, Shaquille? You're on mute.
Well, really, the fact that you guys take yourselves seriously with your call yourself and stuff, it's incredible to me. You know what? It's not resonating with a big part of the American population. I'm not going to sit here and be the great defender of Republicans, Donald Trump. But I think you guys have got to be realistic about what other people are saying. Now, if you want to go to Midas Touch, which is an extremely left-wing and anti-Trump organization and take excerpts out of a rally that went for a couple of hours in Michigan, that's fine. His answer is consistent. Even the little bit of the excerpt that you put there is consistent with the other comments that he's made previously about unfair trade practices by other countries that are impacting the jobs of Americans. That's what he's alluding to there. Yes, he rambles. Yes, he goes on. He tends to give more precise answers in interviews. Harris hasn't done. So if what you want to do is to say that Harris is fantastic and the reason that she's fantastic is because Trump gives rambling answers as well, that's fine, except for the fact that Harris needs, at this point, in my opinion, needs to be able to talk to the American people and express and outline what she wants to do in a way that Trump doesn't need to do this election cycle. But that's fine, guys. That's it. If you want to continue, hang on, let me finish. Just let me finish. If you guys want to continue to try to find evidence as to why your position is correct, that Trump's going to be a terrible president, nobody should elect, that's perfectly fine. You can do that. But what you're not doing is you're not taking the time to understand why other people in your country don't agree.
Okay, just to point out, you just did the grade on the curve. You couldn't even admit that was a rambling answer that never answered the question. That is all you had to do, was to admit that was a rambling answer.
I don't need to do anything.
It didn't do.
What
you did was to go on and try and say that, oh, well, this is the same thing he does. He really alludes to what he's talking about, and this is what he's... No, that is the problem. And that's why when Rick pointed out earlier and asked the question about why that he saw that came up on TV, which is very true. What specifics are you asking from Kamala Harris? And why don't you ask for those same specifics from Donald Trump? It's true, it's baked in the cake, but that's great.
Hold on, Topher and Shaquille, because you said, hold on a second, Shaquille, because you said something. I'm going to let you respond, but I was going to add something to your response, because you said something that you may agree with, I may not totally agree with and everything, because you said that.
Endorsement
Hold on a second,
he gave me.
Lord have mercy, people ever.
His total endorsement at Elon, he gave me that greatest, beautiful.
But Shaquille, one of the things I was going to ask you is, you said that nobody on the network doesn't understand why people would have the views of why they support Trump. And I don't think anybody has any doubt that there are MAGA supporters and there are people that support Trump, and they have various reasons, whether that's for economics, whether that's for the fact that they love his personality. There's a variety of reasons that people love Trump and everything. And I don't think that it is fair of you to say that people on the network don't bother to have an understanding of that. I mean, I follow news and I follow different things, so I understand that there are people that have reasons for their liking Trump, and you think that we don't have that opinion. I can't speak for the rest of the panel, but I know that I understand that there are reasons that people like Trump.
So a couple of things. So firstly, you're taking something that he said in a couple of our rallies, right? You don't do the same thing with Kamala Harris when she rambles on at rallies. You start trying to draw correlation. And what you guys are doing is, because you guys have such a biased view, you're not spending the time and taking the time to consider things. Now, Rick's a bit different, because I've noticed when I say stuff, Rick will sort of sit there and he'll consider it. He may not agree with it in the end, but he'll sort of take a moment to consider it. But let's have a look. If you're going to start trying to defend the network, you used to have another heap of guests that were centre-right and right and conservative that used to come to this show. You guys have ostracized them and made them feel so unwelcome that they've stopped coming. And when I'm not around, what do we have? We have you, Mark, who's a Democrat, Jacoby, who's a Democrat, Rick Rosner, who's a Democrat, Kimberly, who dislikes Trump, and Sasha, who says that
we just had a show yesterday with 3 right-wing individuals, including yourself, trying to justify pedophilia.
My answer, if you don't mind. And what we have is we have me, who, from the first time I've come to this network, have expressed that I believe in more taxes and less regulation because it promotes small business. You guys have been so biased against Republicans and against Trump, even when he was the president, and you'll say things and take things out of context and misquote things, and then ask me for my opinion. Then I give you my opinion, and I say, well, that's actually not quite what was said. And I get labelled a Republican, I get labelled an ultra-conservative and things like that. What that shows, as far as I'm concerned, is not that you guys are fair and reasonable and are prepared to take into consideration the viewpoints of other Americans. What it shows is that you're not actually interested. And what you're going to do is you're going to go out there and try and find evidence to back the position that you already have. Now, I can do that as well. I can go out there and try and find evidence that backs up the position that I already have. But I don't do that. Even when it comes to libertarianism, I've talked about the drawbacks of not having too many regulations, leave safety issues and all sorts of other things at play. I don't think it's much self-reflection on you guys, by you guys, because I think that any kind of criticism that you have, you guys feel as though you have to defend it and you have to attack the other side. And it creates division. Now, Republicans are doing the same thing, absolutely, but we're not talking about them because very few of them show up on the network anymore.
But Shaquille, you've apparently not listened to any of my other shows, because I had literally on David's show said that what I have told you before off the air, which is that I think that the far left is sometimes as critical of the administration as the far right is, and everything, whether that's AOC or whether it's people that I know that are Democratic Socialists, because I do know some of those that are in the area. So that is something that I have brought up on a number of shows, including the one that I did yesterday.
So hold on, can I ask a question real quick?
Far left, mate, also worried about establishment or anti-establishment. It's not you taking the time to consider why almost the population is gravitating towards Donald Trump's viewpoints. And it's going to be a problem. Regardless of the outcome of this election, Kamala Harris wins, we're still going to have half the population that are unhappy with certain economic things that are happening. And what are you going to do? Call them names, say they don't understand finance, economics, say that they don't understand what's going on, say that they're idiots. Is that the plan? Because that's going to work in the same way that if Republicans get to power and they sit there and say that the people on the left are just trying to transfer kids and they're all communists and all that sort of stuff, that's not going to work. That doesn't endear people to that position.
Right now, what you're talking about, there's one person, one candidate who's actually trying to reach out to those individuals who disagree with her. The other candidate has called her mentally disabled, has said the individuals who disagree with him should be jailed, has already said that he's going to try and jail Mark Zuckerberg. He's going to cancel SNL. He's going to do all these things attacking individuals that disagree with him. Yet your complaint here is that you believe that we don't understand or don't listen to. But when I just played you a clip of a gentleman rambling, and when Rick brought up that Trump called Kamala Harris mentally impaired, not once, but multiple times, you had nothing to say about it. Your complaint goes against everything that you were trying to place yourself on this pedestal with. So let me finish. So again, can we get out of this whole idea that you somehow have this great ideal of everybody on both sides, but everybody who disagrees or says anything about Trump has no idea about the other side? When you started your comment, for example, well, if Kamala Harris wins, half of the country's going to be upset. And then you went down. Why do you even point that out? Because right now we're a divided nation. But again, as I stated at the beginning, one is trying to bring people together. The other is talking about a purge.
I don't think that's accurate. I think that Donald Trump
is accurate. I literally gave you his words, and you keep trying to justify them. That's where we come into the issue. Instead of just admitting there was fault or there was a problem. Now, since we've dominated the conversation, let's allow Sasha to talk.
Okay, so the answer is no. You said something.
Let's allow Sasha to talk.
Give Sasha a shot, and then you can respond after.
After
40
Sasha.
minutes into the show, let Sasha say a thing,
Yes.
and you can respond.
I'll be back in a second. I'm going to get my phone ready.
I notice when I start to talk, Shaquille disappears here. For some reason, he doesn't like what I say. But however, I would like to remind everybody that after the Trump Biden debate, which were disastrous for Biden, there was a feel that Trump was absolutely sure that now election is a done deal. And he started to talk about that he's going to unify all Americans. He's going to present for all Americans. So there is no longer divisions for Republicans and Democrats, because he is one who is going to unite and make everybody happy, make America great again, and all other wonderful things. However, things really changed when Kamala Harris came up front, and she proved very quickly quite capable nominee for Democrats. And all of a sudden, his rhetoric, Trump's rhetoric, absolutely changed. And now he's no longer going to be a president for all Americans. That's out. Now Kamala sometimes mentions that, and that's okay. What's important is you have to understand the motives of Trump to try to become a president. The motive is only one. He doesn't care about unifying America. He doesn't care about anything except avoid a jail term for himself. That's the only reason why he runs for president. And now, when he's, in many European countries, they're not even taking him as a serious nominee. They believe that he will be lopsided loser, and it could be so. The most important thing is that now he is working only on his electorate. He doesn't care about independents. He doesn't care about Democrats. He doesn't care about anything. He works very, very focused on his base. Why? Because when he will lose election, he needs a uprising from the base. He needs January 6th, but 10 times bigger. That's what he needs to avoid the jail. That's what he's going to do. So there is no more question about the electorate college and all the other nice things. There is the biggest question is how to resist Trump's uprising after he will lose election. That's a question number 1, 2, and 3. All others has absolutely no interest, at least from me.
You had something you want to add, Kim? I saw you had a video.
Well, it's Shaq's turn.
Yeah, I wanted to share a video. Hold on just a second. The TCJA tax review, but it's more of one of the guys who generally you wouldn't think had any sense of humor, kind of used a sense of humor in describing the outcome. But that's what they spent 4 hours, not just this panel. They had panels come in from all over the United States, professors, Republicans, Democrats, independents, nonpartisan, partisans, people who just spent years and years and years not only researching it after it went into effect, but also played a part in it for years before it went into an effect. It went into effect when Trump was in office. And again, I keep asking, why isn't he campaigning on the greatness of this that was supposed to create more jobs and better paying income? But I just love this part of the, I sit and listen to hundreds of reviews on both sides, and there's just something that tickled my funny bone here, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Let's see.
You gotta hit play.
Other goals that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act might have had, and whether we achieved those other goals.
If you were a Martian looking down on the tax cut and trying to reverse engineer what the goals of the tax cut were, you might be excused for thinking that the goals were to increase the deficit and to cut taxes for the rich. And this is a question of look at what they do rather than what they say. What they say is competitiveness, efficiency, simplification, and we got some simplification. I certainly want to highlight that. And we got some efficiency, and I don't know if we got competitiveness because I don't know what that means. But it was done in a way that was very highly slanted toward high-income households and very much increased current and future budget deficits. I said, Lauren, I wanted to ask you, you said the R&D provision was implemented with the understanding that it would go back.
With the hope, strong hope.
But take the individual provisions, which are the ones that expire in 2025. Was there also that same expectation or same hope?
I think there is certainly now. We're looking at 2025, and you hear on both sides of the aisle, no one wants to raise taxes on middle-income Americans. And so that's more to my point about once things are in the code and baked in, it's very hard to get them out. And of course, you can adjust brackets. We've done that over time, but the narrative that goes along with doing that, you characterized it as a tax cut for wealthy, but the fact of the matter is the brackets went down across the board, and the most expensive part is not the top bracket, it's everything in the middle.
The expensive part, the top 1% got cuts equal to the aggregate cut that the bottom 70% got. So, I mean, yes, all rates went down, but the money, follow the money. The money was at the top. And extending the provisions would cost another $4.5 trillion, according to CBO, for the next decade. So I think the impact on the deficit would be huge, and the distributional effects, are tilted, substantially tilted toward high-income households.
Do any of you have any comments on other goals that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act might have had, and whether we achieved those other goals?
If you were a Martian looking down on the tax.
So, I mean, if we don't take a look at what's really going on in our tax codes and what's happening and what was intended to happen, we're going to continue to allow the middle class to struggle, the lower class. And, I perpetually hear Republicans say, oh, the lower class don't pay taxes. But unless you're in this country and you understand tax code, many people, and to me, lower class is people, unfortunately, who generate less than $30,000 a year and have to rent a home or, rent a house of some kind and have, electrical expenses and utility bills and phone bills and gas bills to go to and from work. And they're not even coming close to breaking even and usually have to get a second job. So they do pay taxes. Anyone actually earning more than $12,000 a year has to report taxes. So, and $12,000 a year isn't a whole lot of money in the United States. It is in other countries. But you really have to understand the economy, what people are living under, working with people like I do. I help work with disadvantaged people who are struggling and help them go through their taxes, because some of them couldn't understand why all of a sudden they were having to pay more taxes than what they expected this year. And a lot of it came from the fact that the TCJA enacted a tax increase on anyone making less than $72,000 in order to recover that $5 trillion tax revenue loss that they were talking about perpetually in this conference. Now, not everybody had a whole lot of, all negative things to say about this TCJA. It just depended on which side of the tracks you were from. But I just thought that was funny. He was like, well, if you were a Martian looking down on this and reverse engineering this, but one of the things that shook me up really bad is, that if we continue on this path, the only increase in pay that the middle class will get in the next 10 years is $750 if we continue on the path that we're on. So I agree with David Walker when he says we need reform, but I actually think that the TCJA needs to expire, and it won't expire if Trump gets into office. And that's just the difference. If you want the TCJA to stay in effect, then you want Trump in the office. That's what I try to tell people. To me, my data isn't about influencing you one way or the other. It's about, does it help you or does it hurt you? That's what my data is about. That's what their data was about. If it helps you, then you want this. If it's not helping you, then you make a quick change and you can fix it. So that's
Shaquille and Steve. I think Shaquille had something he wanted to add.
Steve Rouse here now. I think the audience is well aware that I was forced 4 words into my response to Toby before I was cut off, and he collectively told me that I wasn't allowed to respond. So let's go to Steve.
Well, I'll be very brief. First of all, I did want to say that I spoke on the federal deficit. I actually called David Walker just last week. I had to go to speak on a panel on the federal deficit. And the bottom line is that the national debt has been a problem that's gone back to the 2000s, and it's a Republican and a Democratic problem. I think that's part of the problem. It all began with Bush 1, Bush 2, with the Afghanistan wars, worse in 2008. Of course, the Trump tax cuts, and now Harris wants to cut taxes. So when both presidential candidates want to cut taxes, and we're spending more than we're bringing in, we've got a problem. And I think it's not going to get better until both parties come together and address it seriously. On that note, I will say that I attended a lunch yesterday with 2 very well-known political consultants, Morgan Jackson, who is the right-hand guy of Governor Cooper, and Josh Stein, the main consultant architect of both campaigns, and Paul Shoemaker, who's a Republican consultant. And what was very interesting is Shoemaker, who never ever says, he's a real data-driven guy, but he goes basically right as of now, he believes that Vice President Harris is in a very good position to win North Carolina, win the presidency. And the Mark Robinson effect is having much more severe consequences for the Republicans in North Carolina than expected. So he basically says that he's not very confident right now that Trump is going to win. He thinks that there's going to be. He thinks history is going to be made in North Carolina, which really shocked the crowd. But but it's just amazing. But he said the Republicans did it to themselves. He said, they just stood by and endorsed Robinson and everything, and then rather than finding a candidate that could have not drug everyone down. So we'll see what happens. But for a renowned Republican consultant who was a chief of staff for Senator Burr, to say that, I think is really, really telling. So I think for you Republicans out there, you better get ready, because I think we may have a woman in the White House. But I think it's in striking distance. I think she could win this thing if things continue the way they are in North Carolina. I think it's going to end in North Carolina. I think she's going to win North Carolina, and it's over. That's my prediction.
I think it's going to be a tight race in North Carolina based on some of the rumors that are spreading, especially after the hurricane, and people are trying to make her look bad for not coming.
Yeah,
to the
I think that the hurricane could hurt the Democrats and the Republicans, because that's about 700,000 votes or 600,000 votes that may not happen. So that could be a factor that
Biden's had some criticism for being in Delaware over the weekend, and then his response was that he was on the phone for a couple of hours. I share your view at this point, certainly on the numbers that Josh Stein looks to be the winner of the governor's race. I don't think that. Well, first of all, I actually don't think that's going to. I think it'll be a split, but I don't think that North Carolina on the numbers is going to flip. But even if it does, I don't think that that's going to be the deciding factor of the election. I do want to just make a couple of points about some of the previous issues that have been brought up. There are economic schools of thought, many different economic schools of thought. I happen to subscribe to the view that lower regulations and lower taxes generally is a better idea. If you want to attribute republicanism to me because of that viewpoint, you would also have to say that JFK was a Republican, and many other Democrats who, over history, have advocated for the same position. For me to not be considered a Republican in your race, I would have to say, I advocate for this in the UK, I advocate for this in Australia, I advocate for this in New Zealand, I advocate for this in Europe, because I think it makes economic sense because that's how the economy works, in my view, except for the United States. In the United States, more regulations and more taxes is going to work. Now, clearly, that's patently absurd. The point that I have in relation to the economy is the same in the US as what it is in other countries, and that's why I say what I say. Now, again, if it makes you feel better to attribute republicanism to me, that's perfectly fine. The fact of the matter is, Steve, you may very well be correct. You made a comment there. I don't think it was quite the way you intended it to sound, but you said Republicans have maybe got to get used to the idea there could be a woman in the White House. I don't think that Republicans or conservatives around the world or centre-right parties around the world have a problem with a woman being president. In fact, if you look at conservative parties in other countries, it's generally those parties that are the first people to put a woman in charge of the country. I don't think that's the issue. I think that they have issues with the very left-wing ideals that Kamala Harris expresses. Having said that, this race will be tight. Certainly in North Carolina, it will be tight. Now, either there's going to be Donald Trump winning the presidency, or it'll be Kamala Harris. That's a decision for the American people to decide. My personal preference would be that there's a landslide one way or the other. Because if there's a landslide on the Donald Trump side, it sends a message to Democrats that they need to come back more towards the right and understand they've gone too far to the left. If it's a landslide for Kamala Harris, then it's a message for Republicans that they've gone too far to the right and they've got to come back towards the left. So there's always a message.
We need to wrap here in a minute. We have another video to play, but
okay, hold on one second. Let me say one thing.
Okay.
There hasn't been a landslide since Reagan 40 years ago.
Oh, and I saw the movie
it's
last night.
unlikely.
Really good with Dennis Quaid.
You're right, Rick. It is unlikely, but
And Steve, I have a big question for you, and maybe we can pick it up tomorrow about the campaign and the effects of the TCJ Act. I call it the TCJC, job cuts. But anyway, let's play this video for tonight's improv intro, and look forward to seeing you.
I just want to make one comment. It'll take me just a second.
Don't forget to watch the Dear Crane show.
It's very easy to find economists and people on the left that don't like the TCJA. It's very easy as well to find economists on the right that do like it.
Well, and that's why, we're going to go do debates. And here we go. Whoops.
Debate the guy. Tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
Donald Trump doesn't look good at a rally.
I think what we need to do now, unfortunately, is we have to wrap. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow on World Edition.